As we know, 2020 is right around the corner and congressional seats will once again be up for grabs. That includes the 22nd District. Longtime Congressman Devin Nunes won another term against Andrew Jans, but it wasn't as convincing as it has been. Now there's a new challenger in the mix ready to take on one of the most powerful politicians on Capitol Hill, that is, and here he is. Dari Rezvani, a small business owner, mechanic, and former consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And here you are. Congratulations on filing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me today.
Yeah, and we just want to clear something up because there were some reports out there that you were filing under the Republican Party, but you're not. You're filing under the Democratic Party.
That is correct. Yeah. There was a story that was published that I'm a young Republican running against Nunes, but that is not the case. Yeah. I don't know if my business background convoluted some of that messaging, but yeah, that is not the case.
Well, who are you?
So, I mean, you obviously said my professional background, but you know, ultimately, I'm just a concerned citizen that feels an obligation to start to drive the change in the society that we need.
You know, do you believe Congressman Nunes, though, is now vulnerable? You watched that race very closely with Andrew Jans. He did come pretty close under the 10-point margin, but do you feel like, you know, the voters are now leaning a certain way that makes you want to get into this?
Well, look, I think that there's a couple of things working towards that, right? I think that Nunes definitely is losing his firm hold in this area. And on top of that, I believe that more Democrats are registering. I think that people are starting to realize that it's voter engagement that's going to get this thing done. You know, and ultimately, we need representation that is going to talk for the Valley, right? I mean, we can't just keep not having town halls. I'll put it that way. So.
You talk about those things, but really, what's your vision here? How do you unseat Congressman Nunes, who is a very powerful voice on Capitol Hill?
One door at a time, right? I mean, it's a matter of building the trust with the constituents and ultimately then getting them out to vote. You know, it's not enough to have signs on the yard and things along those lines if it doesn't translate into the voter booth. So that's ultimately the goal, is we have to register voters and we have to make sure that they get out to vote. And I know that California has just passed some pretty good voting legislation to make it easier for voters to do just that.
It's one thing to vote, but then it's another to go out and fundraise. And absolutely. Congressman Nunes is a master at that.
Absolutely.
How do you compete with that?
$1 at a time. You know, obviously what Jans did in the last election, I think he raised $9 million, and you're absolutely correct, Nunes is a fundraising machine. Look, I have a message that is sincere. I think that the people in the Central Valley will resonate with the things that I'm trying to say, and I think that ultimately, nationally, what I'm trying to get accomplished is in everyone's best interest.
What are you saying? What is your message?
So the thing that gets me up out of bed in the morning and to do this and to quit my job and to make this my goal is the climate crisis that's happening. You know, my biggest thing is I would love to be a father one day. I, in good faith, cannot bring a new child into this world seeing the things that are happening, and not just the things that are happening, but the things that are being ignored by this representation.
So climate change will be one of your biggest components to jumping into this race.
Absolutely, and I do want to just.
What about immigration? What about everything that you're talking about now besides climate change? Talk about the district, farming, water, all those things.
Well, so the water, that's what I was going to say, is water is directly impacted by this climate crisis that's happening, right? I mean, we're seeing now the summers becoming more drastic, the random rains that we just had. I believe that the Central Valley is starting to come around and understand that these things are real and they're impacting the things that our day-to-day life. To the immigration point, look, I'm a first-generation American. My dad immigrated to the United States in the 70s. He was an Iranian immigrant. The attacks on the Latino and Middle Eastern communities are literally an attack on the Central Valley, right? That is I would say, the fabric of this area. And the fact that we have a representative that is not willing to speak up to someone who is disparaging our people is not right. And there's no way that you can convince me that that is someone who has our best interests in mind when he stays complacent.
Devin Nunes didn't even utter the name Andrew Jans. How do you get him to even recognize that you're in this race?
Well, here's the thing. If he says my name, that's free publicity for me. I mean, that's good strategy on his end, right? I mean, there's a lot of cameras on him all the time, and whatever comes out of his mouth is essentially publicity.
But he probably won't.
I understand
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean, and that's why my messaging is so important. I can't rely, I'm not running against Devin Nunes. I am running for me. I am running for the 700,000 constituents of District 22, right? That, at the end of the day, that is what I am running for. Yeah, you're right. He didn't mention Jans once. Hopefully, I'm able to get a little bit closer and I get under his skin, and maybe I can get him to say my name.
How do you get under his skin? Will it get nasty as it did with Jans and Nunes?
I hope not, but at the end of the day, if I am getting that close, that's kind of what brings it out, right? I mean, it's the fear that you're going to lose that seat when you have to start playing dirty. And so, like I said, one day at a time, $1 at a time, and we'll get this thing done.
Finally, just a couple of seconds here. What is the first thing that you're going to do when you hit the campaign trail?
Talk to people. I need to listen, right? I mean, there's a lot of things, like to my previous comment, when was the last time he had a town hall here? When was the last time he actually listened to the citizens? So, one of the main things I'm doing is reaching out to the farmers, I'm reaching out to the people, and actually listening. And I think that right there is going to show the sincerity and ultimately drive this thing home.
All right. District 22 congressional candidate, Dari Rizvani.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.